Well, hey there everyone, and welcome back to Cowboy Survival. We're going to do something a little different today. We're going to take a look at some cordage. Now, I know we're all familiar with the old standby 550 paracord. You can get this in a lot of different weights. This happens to be 550. You can get it in much heavier weights. You can also get the survival cord that has a lot of different strands inside it, like fishing line and sewing thread and maybe wire for snares. Has a lot of different uses. So you can do that. The paracord is something we all use. When I do my ridge lines with paracord, I pair that with making my prusik loops out of braided tarred bank line. This is really nice because the properties of this braided tar bank line mean that when I can slide it up and down the paracord, but when I pull on it at an angle, this bank line will bite into the paracord and won't move. So it's a really nice way to be able to stretch my tent out very tight, and it's not going to loosen up. But what we're going to talk about today is Kevlar cord. This is 1.1 milliliter or millimeter. It is rated at 200 pounds of strength. You can get it thicker than this, a much thicker braid. And as it gets thicker, it gets much stronger in strength. Kevlar was developed in the mid-1960s by a scientist at DuPont, so it is an American invention. And it's been used in a lot of things. It was originally used in racing tires, then it was used in bicycle tires. Eventually they started using it, of course, in thread to make fabric to replace nylon in bulletproof vests, and that's appeared to be very, very successful. So it's used in a lot of different kinds of applications. We're going to think about it in terms of a survival application as a replacement for perhaps these other cords. It's very thin, it's very, very lightweight. It's actually used in sailcloth a lot because it is so lightweight. And it's very strong. It's estimated to have a strength, that's about 5 times the strength of steel, depending upon the kind of ratio you're looking at. So we'll look at several different uses of this paracord and see how it can be used in the field and perhaps why you might want to carry some of this with you along with your paracord and your bank line. So let's just get right into it. So one of the things we want to think about with our bank line is, first of all, its cost. So this little spool of about 120 feet of Kevlar cord cost me about $18 off Amazon. That's kind of expensive, right? It's actually more than I can't say, I'd have to do the math on it in my head, but it's kind of expensive cord. So if you want to make sure it's really, if you're going to buy a bunch of this, you want to make sure it's really useful, because you want to buy a bunch of stuff that you spend a lot of money on that's really not very useful. The next thing you need to think about is you're not going to use 120 feet at a time. You're going to use a certain amount of it. So I'm going to strip off about 6 feet of this for our uses here tonight. And I'm going to demonstrate to you that it doesn't cut very well. First of all, you don't want to use a knife to cut the Kevlar with, because Kevlar is abrasive. It will dull the edge on your knife, so you definitely don't want to use a knife to cut it. Let's just try using plain old scissors. These are just shears right from my closet, and that doesn't work very well. As you can see, I can't cut that with those scissors. And the reason why is that Kevlar slides against the 2 straight blades, and so it's not going to cut very well. I happen to have in my toolbox a pair of these shears that I got from Harbor Freight. Now these are 99-cent shears at Harbor Freight, and if you have the app, there are times when you can get these for free. Now the difference is, yes, it's got a straight blade on it, and you can see that, but when you look at the other side of this blade, look at that, it's got some serrated edges on it. Hopefully you can see that. See those serrated edges on that blade? Well, what those serrated edges are going to do is allow me, the cord will catch on that serrated edge, and it'll allow me to cut this cord. So I'll bury it deep inside the scissors. It's caught on that cord, so it's going to not move well, and I'm going to put it in a place I haven't already weakened it, just so I can demonstrate. And when I cut down, watch this. Cuts right through it, and no problem at all. If I want to cut some more off, I just take this, put my scissors in there, put it back in there, and cuts it right through. So what you want is, you don't want regular straight cabinet scissors. You want these scissors, you can get these shears you can get down at Harbor Freight for 99 cents. They're pretty cool. Not only are they good for that, but they have these teeth on the end. You can actually use them as a plier if you need to. It's got an open jars or bottles or whatever. Kind of cool shears. So For cutting your cord, you're going to need a special kind of shear. So you might want to cut several lengths of it at home before you go out in the field. You don't want to necessarily take this spool because you're not necessarily going to have serrated edge scissors in the field. So I'm not sure I would take this cord, a whole spool of cord with me. I'd probably spool off several lengths of about 10 feet. I would take those lengths of about 10 feet and I would wrap those up, and I would use those as needed in the field. So one of the most famous things that we know about Kevlar, it can be used to cut through wood, to cut things in the field. So I've taken my Kevlar string and I've tied a couple of loops in it like this, put one of them around this edge of wood. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back and forth like this on the wood and use it as sort of a saw. Now I wrapped it around this because I have a little too much more than I need. So I'll put this piece of wood into the other loop, and I've got myself basically a string with sticks on both ends, and I'm going to slide that underneath the piece of wood, and you're going to see that in the side video. And I'm going to cut through this piece of wood using this string. Now effectively the string, what it's going to do is it's going to actually burn through the wood. It's not going to actually cut the wood, it's going to burn through the wood, and you're going to actually see the smoke coming out of it. I'm going to take this and just pass this under this wood right here, and hopefully we can get this on film really well. So I've got this here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to straddle this piece of wood, and I'm just going to start moving my hands back and forth. And you'll start to see smoke coming up. That's the Kevlar cord cutting right through this wood. It makes an extraordinarily smooth cut. I'm surprised it doesn't start a fire. And there it went. And so let me show you on film. You can see how that is a really, really smooth cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work it right through that wood. I'm going to make a loop in the wood. You can see that. And I'm going to pass that loop right through it with this cord over the end of my shoe. The cord is not hot. It's not really worn. It's not really shredded at all. So I'm going to pass this cord something else. So through Kevlar will cut through wood as we've just demonstrated. Through this, well, I probably should have done that before I did this. Let's take this off my shoe. And the way you'll do it is before, well, wait a minute, now it's stuck on my shoe. So I read in a survival magazine where you can use this Kevlar cord to get out of restraints. So I'm going to do something next that's probably pretty risky. I'm going to put my hands into a zip tie restraint. And then what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can use this Kevlar cord to break that Kevlar restraint. Now, one of the things they suggest in the survival magazine is that you hide this somewhere on your person. Maybe you put some in the hem of your garment, maybe in the waist of your garment, so that people don't see it, your captors don't see it, but your captors will nevertheless overlook it, and then you can pull it out when they're not looking, and you can cut your restraints. So the first thing I'm going to do, we'll assume that it's in my pants somewhere. I'm going to put this around my wrist, if I can manage to do that. It's kind of hard to do this to yourself sometimes. I'm not even sure it's a wise thing to do. So I'm going to start the Kevlar. I'm going to put my hands in there. And my wife is at home, so if I get this too tight and can't get out of it, well, you know, I just have to get my wife to come help me. So I've got that on my wrist. Now what I'm going to do is, let's assume I got my Kevlar cord out. We will first bring this up here and I'll pull it through, perhaps. Sounds easier to do than it probably really is. Okay, so I'm going to pull that up. We'll pull one end of it through. undo that. That's going to pull it out. So we're going to get it pulled through here one way or the other. Okay, so it's through there. So I'll get this. I'm going to make, again, a loop. I'm going to pass this loop over the end of my left foot. Get on there really good. I'm going to take the other end, if I can find it. Find the other end here. And we're going to pass that end through over my right foot. And now I got these two strings. They're on that Kevlar cord. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to cut this cord by moving my feet back and forth. So we'll see how that works. Look at that. It broke it just like that. Pretty neat trick if you're ever captured and you're constrained with zip ties. One of the myths I hear a lot about paracord is that it's fire resistant. It's not going to burn. It's going to hold up in the heat. I want to test that. I'm not too sure. That I'm kind of a bit dubious of that. It is known as a fire retardant or fire resistant material. It's probably not going to actually catch fire like string would, but I wonder what the heat will do. It does say that when heat is applied, it does reduce the strength of the paracord. So I'm just going to put this paracord over this little flame that I created in my solo stove. And just that quick, it burned it. But it actually almost caught it on fire, didn't it? So very quickly, this paracord broke when it was exposed to heat. And it did not hold up. I can do it again. So I think what we learned here is that at least 1.1 millimeter Kevlar is not going to hold up when it's put in a flame and exposed to fire. It's going to break. It's going to break down. It won't actually burn like cord will, but it's going to break under that, sort of like if you exposed wire to heat. It's going to do the same thing. So I think that this myth about the fire retardedness of Kevlar is probably a bit overstated. Well, there's a look at Kevlar cord, 1.1 millimeter, 200-pound cord. Maybe if you got a 400-pound cord, it'd be a little thicker. It might be a little more useful. I'm not too sure that I'm going to put a lot of this in my kit. This 1.1 millimeter is just not going to be strong enough to do a lot with. I might be able to do some things with it, maybe tie up some things, maybe do a little lashing with it of a tripod or something, or lash some sticks together for a table, or maybe for a raised bed in a camp. But I'm just not going to think that this is going to have a whole lot of uses that make it that important to add weight to my kit. Now, it doesn't weigh much, but it will take up space. So it's okay. It's kind of cool what it'll do, but I'm just not sure this is an item that's a must-have in my kit. Well, that's it for tonight's video. Remember what we always say. Stay strong, stay prepared, have a blessed day, and we'll see you real soon on Cowboy Survival.